Okay, everybody, welcome back to the Dana Buckler Show. My name is Dana, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Mr. Jason Waters. Jason, how are you today?
I am fantastic. Thanks for asking.
Oh, perfect. So we're trying something a little different on this episode. So
I love this.
This is kind of like a pat ourselves on the back. We completed the
Huzzah!
101 movies from the 1990s that you need to watch. 10 episodes. Some of these episodes are more than 2 hours, so more than 20 hours long. We did it.
And if you think about 101 episodes, it may be an hour and a half each.
Yeah.
I mean, how many movies have we rewatched hour-wise? Like, that's insane.
Yeah. Jeez, I didn't even think about that. 101 movies an hour. Yeah. That's a lot of hours we logged.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I
loved every minute of it, too.
No, it was great. And I thought we would, and this is on the main feed. So for those listening, if you haven't had an opportunity to check that out, of course, we'd always appreciate your support. This is what keeps the lights on here at the Dana Buckler Show, our Patreon supporters, and we're grateful for all of them. I'm just going through the list. I've got the list of all the movies that we covered, and I'm looking through it, and I'm just going, Jason, were there any standouts for you on this one? Like ones that you thought, I'm not a fan of this movie, and then you rewatched it. You're like, well, I don't know why Dana added this to the list, and then you rewatched it, and you're like, you know what? Because there was a few that you added that I was like, I'm not going to watch this. And then when I watched it, I'm like, I was completely wrong.
I'll wait for you to replay it, but I definitely remember there were several that I was like, Dana added this one? And then I'm like, oh no, that's actually absolutely great. And there were several that I was like, that did not hold up.
Yeah. Interesting.
So I think there's a little bit of both in there.
Looking over the list, I think I'll say the biggest turnaround for me was like I was completely sure that I was going to begrudgingly watch this film and basically like, yep, I was right. Was Natural Born Killers.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I was thoroughly...
Because I remember you telling me over and over, like, that movie's garbage. They took Quentin Tarantino's vision and just trashed it. And then, And then
realizing, like, upon this rewatch, and I did watch the director's cut, which was heavy. I think, and I don't remember which episode it was. It was 9 or 10 of the series where... I'm like, did you know they decapitated Tommy Lee Jones in the director's cut? Because I wasn't ready for that.
Because I remember we built up to that one because I added it and you were like, that doesn't belong here. And I'm like, wait for it.
Now, I look at that film through a completely different lens now.
Awesome.
No pun intended.
Well, that's what this podcast is supposed to do and for those who have not listened to any of them, I encourage you to go back and at least get Patreon and listen, because there's a lot of in-depth, like we go sometimes 10, 20 minutes into a movie that you think and there's a whole other aspect out there that's just, it's wide open to you.
Yeah. So, no, you're absolutely right. I'm looking through the list here, and here are the ones that, here's just a few of the movies that there's what we call the no-brainers.
Yep.
And then some that you added to the list where I was like, oh, I didn't think about that one. Sleepless in Seattle is an example. I really enjoyed rewatching that one. Going through here just a little bit, Fried Green Tomatoes was a first-time watch for me.
That's right.
And that was excellent.
Yep.
Absolutely excellent. Grosse Pointe Blank. That was an exceptional one for me. One that I hadn't seen in years, but I absolutely just had a ball with was The Fugitive. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that I could probably quote that movie verbatim just watching it right now. Well, that actually leads me to the next part of this list I want to know, and that really, you answered my question of all 101 movies on the list. Which one do you think you know the best? So of all of those movies, 100% I could quote verbatim, like literally from the screenplay, would be Pulp Fiction. Okay, Pulp Fiction. Okay, for me, it's actually Fargo. Really? I know that movie inside and out. It's definitely on my top 10 of the 90s list. The movie on this list that I have seen the most, but never get tired of watching it for me, would be Terminator 2 Judgment Day. I would say for me, it would be Shawshank Redemption. Okay, yeah, that's a good one. Yep. That's a good one. The What Was I Thinking pick when looking at this list would be The Program. which I love. It's an inherently watchable movie. But going through the list of like, we've got Heat and we've got, Jerry Maguire, and all of a sudden I look, I'm like, I fucking added the program to this list.
I wasn't going to say anything, but Life?
Oh, no, I stand by Life.
Okay.
I'm standing by Life.
But the one that I guess which one is mine?
Which one is yours?
It's My Own Private Idaho.
Yeah. That was good. Hey, that was another first time watch for me.
Yes, it was.
That was absolutely
the first time last time. But Gus Van Sant, it sets the tone for his future movies, and it's got a soft spot in my heart, especially for the actors in the film. River Phoenix just kills it in that.
What about Diggstown, which is a movie that I was pretty happy to add to the list, which I feel like that was one I think you walked away like, I could take that or leave it.
I still don't like Diggstown.
Not a fan.
But I gotta say, it's not so much the movie itself, because the movie is not great, but Mr. Woods.
Just not a fan. Oh, neither. How can you be? How can you be?
It's a different lens watching it through now, so it's difficult to see that and go, oh, James Woods, you're a great actor. No, you're an asshole. You
know what my favorite James Woods performance is? Lester the pimp in Casino, because he gets the shit kicked out of him.
I could see that.
When fucking De Niro, they're sitting at the diner and he's got the money and he's like, you take the money and you gotta take, while you're at it, take mine. And he's still thinking about it. He's still looking at it and he just goes, ah. And then he walks out. So that's my favorite James Woods performance.
Yeah.
Looking back on the list, State of Grace.
That was one that was my first time watch.
Okay.
And I loved it.
Yeah. And that
my only criticism on that, I think I said it before, was that shootout scene at the end. I'm like, come on, yo. You've got to have better aim than that.
Yeah. So that was one of the movies that, interest of full disclosure, the director of that movie is a friend of mine. And any opportunity I get to, speak the gospel of Phil Joannou, I take. But that he made 3 movies in the 90s. He made State of Grace, Heaven's Prisoners, and Final Analysis. And both Heaven's Prisoners and Final Analysis fall into that R-rated, it's coming off the heels of Basic Instinct and Fatal Attraction. And, it's just a R-rated thriller with a little sexual tension that's geared towards adults. And it's the Heaven's Prisoners got Alec Baldwin, Final Analysis, Richard Gere. I mean, these Kim Basinger, they're good movies. But if I was going to pick one of those 3 in the 90s,
it was fantastic.
Did I ever tell you, and now is a perfect opportunity to tell the story of how I became friends with Phil Joannou.
No.
Okay, so he actually made one other movie in 1999.
Oh, I'm very familiar with that one.
Okay, Entropy.
Wait.
Did you not? Which one were you thinking of?
I was thinking of the U2.
That was 87.
Oh, was that okay?
That was 1987. Okay, so let me tell you the story of how I met Phil Joannou.
U2 documentary is one of my favorite movies of all time.
It's one of the best concert documentaries of all time.
So one of my favorite bands is U2, and when you told me he's like, oh yeah, he directed that, I'm like, shut the fuck up.
Okay,
really?
So the story is, put a pin on the how I met him. The story goes that because U2 was interviewing a bunch of different directors,
right?
All right, because they were going on this Joshua Tree worldwide tour, and they wanted someone to document the worldwide tour.
Yeah.
And so he was in New York, and he was one of a handful of directors that was like meeting in a hotel room with Bono and The Edge. And every time they'd sit down with the director, Bono would say, so what do you want to do with this documentary? What do you want it to be? And, each director had their pitch. Well, I think we should do this and that. And Phil sat down and they said, well, what kind of documentary do you want to make? And he said, what kind of documentary do you want to make? He said that to them. And they were like, oh, okay, hold on a second. Hold on. And so what they did was he then flew over to Dublin to hang out with them. He's directed, at this point, he has directed.
Like for me, they'd be like, all right, bucket list check.
Yeah. So I'm
hang out with Bono.
I'm just going to hang out with Bono and The Edge. So at this point, he's directed a couple episodes of Amazing Stories, Santa 85, and The Doll, which The Doll had John Lithgow. John Lithgow wins an Emmy. Yeah. He wins an Emmy for that performance. Yeah. So Phil directed that. So what happens is he's at this point, I don't think it had come out yet, but he had just wrapped up principal photography on 3 O'Clock High. A great movie. Everyone needs to see. He then flies over to Dublin to hang out with Bono and The Edge. And what they do is they purposely take him to like a house party 50 miles outside of the city where,
see what he would do?
just a group of people, and they leave him there. And they just straight leave him. And they wanted to see if he was going to be able to find his way back to Dublin.
No shit.
And he found his way back to Dublin, and he got the job.
That's the best interview I've ever heard of.
So in around 2003, 2004, all right, so maybe about 20 years ago, all right, I'm got my little 2-bedroom apartment. I've got a roommate, and we splurged on cable back then. So when I say splurge, we didn't just have HBO.
No,
we had HBO, Cinemax, Showtime, Stars. We had them all. Like, we had a pretty expensive cable bill. So I remember coming home from work one time, and I worked till like 2 o'clock in the morning back then, the DJ life. And I'm just sitting on the couch and I'm flipping through, and I don't know if it was Showtime or Cinemax, but you watch those channels late night, and if they're not showing softcore porn, they're showing kind of smaller independent films. And I come across this movie, and it's called Entropy. And I catch it pretty much at the beginning. It stars Steven Dorff, all right? And the story is pretty simple. He is a music video director. Our main character is a music video director who's getting an opportunity to make his first big studio picture. And it's all about sort of the trials and tribulations of trying to get this picture made. Okay. Battling with these producers, which are very much like a Don Simpson, Jerry Bruckheimer type like
right.
Frank, who is that? Frank Vincent plays one of the producers, so like, and he meets this model, this French model, and has a torrid love affair with her. And it's kind of, everything kind of collapses around it. But I was just really like into this movie. And what really kind of struck me about the film, which I would learn years later, was the fact that it was an independent film. You could tell. I mean, don't get me wrong. Cinematography, everything was top notch, but Steven Dorff wasn't a big name.
Right. No, not at that time. I mean, not a huge name.
But I was perplexed because there was a couple scenes with Bono in the movie. Like, Bono's playing himself, because one of the things that our character's doing is he's on tour with U2, like shooting, some of their concert stuff. By the way, none of this was making sense to me at the time, but I was like, not only is U2 in it, but he's got U2 songs playing in it. And I'm smart enough to know what it costs to license a song for a movie. It can cost upwards of a few $1 million.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm just like, huh. And then
I got you, bro.
When the movie's over, it's over. And I could never find it. I remember going to Blockbuster a couple days later, couldn't find it. This is long before. There was no stream. There was no streaming back then. YouTube hadn't even been invented yet. Yeah. And so this movie had never gotten out of my head. Like, for years, I just constantly would think about it. I would love to see this movie again sometime. Flash forward, I've been doing the podcast for a couple of years. It's late 2015. I get an email from Jim Hemphill. Mm-hmm. And Jim was really good about introducing me to people. Like, I got Leah Thompson on the podcast because of Jim Hemphill. Yeah. And so I'm in a group email, and he says, "Hey, Dana, I want you to meet my friend Phil Joanno. Phil has a new movie coming out called The Veil with Thomas Jane and Jessica Alba." And Jim is just saying, Dana's this great podcaster. He knows his stuff, and and so I start corresponding with Phil, and Phil says, I'll send you a copy of the movie. It hadn't come out yet. And what's your address? And a few days later, I got a FedEx package with a burnt Blu-ray.
Oh.
It just, back when you could burn movies on the Blu-ray. And it had a Sharpie on it. It just said, The Veil. Please don't show anyone. And so I popped this thing in, and the Universal logo comes up. I'm like, I don't even know if I'm supposed to have this.
I'm a pirate.
This is Blumhouse that was putting it out. Oh, okay. And so it was one of those Blumhouse horror movies.
Yeah.
And so I watched the film, and it was a tight hour and a half psychological thriller, which kind of a slow burn in the beginning, but about the 50-minute mark, it just takes off like a rocket. Yeah. And Thomas Jane is excellent in it. He is excellent in it.
We haven't delved into any of his stuff, but I love Thomas Jane.
He's so good in this movie.
He's one of my favorite actors.
Now, I think The Veil you can find on Netflix right now. It's worth a watch just for his performance. It's kind of like a Jim Jones, Fred Phelps type. Oh, okay. Like, he's like a pastor, or he's got like a cult leader. Yeah. It's really interesting. And and Phil made it, so it's stylistically really, really nice. But so I reach out to Phil, and to be fair, like I get people reach out to me all the time. Hey, will you watch my movie? And and a lot of times I'll say, yeah, I'll watch it. No guarantee I'll talk about it on the podcast, but thank you for sending it to me. I will certainly watch the hard work you put into this. So, but if I really like the movie, I'm going to ask him to come on the show.
Yeah.
So I reached out to Phil and I said, this was great. Would you come on the show and we can talk about this and maybe talk a little bit about your career? He's like, I'd love to. So I set it up for a week later, and I'm saying to myself, I need to look into Phil a little bit more. So I start going through his IMDb filmography, and I'm like, 3 O'Clock High. No shit. I fucking love that movie. You Two Rattle and Hum. I'm like, oh my God. All right. And then it was like State of Grace. And he did The Gridiron Gang with The Rock. And I'm like, I fucking know these movies. And then all of a sudden I see in 1999 Entropy, written and directed by Phil Joannou. And I could have died right there on the spot.
That's insane.
I couldn't believe it. This movie for more than 10 years had been just lingering around in my head, and I just couldn't believe it. And then to come to find out, like, it was a semi-autobiographical, his story, essentially his story. Yeah. And he's been on the show 25 times since then. I
love listening to those episodes with him.
I consider him to be a mentor. And so for me to be able to introduce State of Grace to some people out there that maybe haven't seen it was a big deal.
Watch it. Good God, it's such a great movie.
Okay, so there's another example of a movie that we had a couple link letters on this list.
We did, yeah.
You know, the Before Sunset, Before Sunrise, Before Midnight, all of those movies.
Before all of them.
Before all, yeah. Those were all excellent. So let's talk about the heavies for a moment.
Ooh.
All right.
How heavy you want to go? Like
well, okay.
Schindler's List?
Well, Schindler's... Okay, so here's my definition of the heavies. Okay? Because we tried to keep this fun, and we want to make sure...
we kept some of the heartbreaks for the end.
Yeah. We wanted to put a few heavies on there. These are movies that are, I think, in our opinion, required viewing.
Yep.
Okay, so looking through the heavies, okay?
And I will temper this to say... Maybe these aren't, you know, we always kid about we're going to do a podcast on, I love that movie, I'll never watch it again. Yeah. So this may be on some of those. Like, when we recommend some of these, it's because you need to watch it not 10 times, but maybe just one time.
One time.
To make you realize, holy shit, there's another perspective that I haven't taken into account.
And as we're gearing up to start the next series, 101 movies from the 2000s, there's going to be some heavies on that one as well. Yeah. So here's my what I consider to be the heavies.
Okay.
All right. And these are the ones that if you've never seen them, you need to watch them. Mm-hmm. We're not saying you need to like get a popcorn and a soda and be excited, but
like
these
kids gather around. Let's watch.
These are significant films. All right. Obviously, Schindler's List, The Piano. All right. Going through here a little bit more. Boys Don't Cry.
That was
okay.
Yeah.
Leaving Las Vegas. That was a heavy.
That's a super heavy for me.
Now, let me ask you a question. Do we classify Silence of the Lambs as a heavy?
Would I? Yes, only because of the source material for it is just deeply disturbing.
Yeah.
Like, you don't watch that one and walk away going, well, you know, I that was a fantastic film. You walk away from that going, I need to reevaluate my judgment system. Like,
okay. My Own Private Idaho. That was a heavy.
That was a heavy.
American History X.
Ooh, yeah. I'm still poignant to this day.
I'm really encouraged. There is a gentleman at my restaurant who is, I think he's 23 or 24. And he has really been talking to me over the past couple of years about some good movie recommendations for him.
Yeah.
And he's been doing them. Like he came to work the other day and he's like, so I watched Schindler's List and The Pianist back to back. And I'm like, how are you feeling? Do you need a hug? Yeah. He's like, I'm so glad I saw these movies. Like he goes, I don't ever want to watch them again, but I'm so glad I saw them. And the other day he said, I watched American History X for the first time. And I said, what did you think? He goes, they don't make movies like this anymore.
No, they don't. Yeah.
And that's the thing.
Well, and I'll tell you this too. And I'm sure there's some kind of, DSM classification for this. And this is going to sound sadistic because some of these movies I don't really, I couldn't watch on the regular, like Schindler's List. I could never just turn that on and just go, yeah, let me just pop this in for a quick watch. But movies that are dramatic and emotional, I watch all the time.
Yeah.
The one that I like, it's one that gets me every single time, and you're gonna hate me for this. Manchester by the Sea.
Oh, I saw that in the theater.
Yeah,
I remember.
I love that movie. Not so much. It's probably one of the worst plots ever. Like, because it's so sad, but it makes me feel so much, and that's what I love about some of these films.
Okay, so we're not on any kind of rules here. We can talk about this for a moment.
Yeah.
So, Manchester by the Sea, I believe, comes out 2017. Mm-hmm. Kenneth Lonergan film.
Yep.
Okay, he did Margaret. Have you ever saw Margaret?
This is our Amazon entry into the film spectrum.
Yeah. So I saw this was coming up on award season. So Regal would put they put all the Best Picture nominees back in theater. So I remember in 2017, I went and saw that in a practically empty theater. There was like two other people that were
probably there.
Yeah. Well, no, it wouldn't have been you because these people had smuggled contraband into the theater. Like
it might have been me.
They had the Publix bag of popcorn. How they got that in there, I'll never know. Kind of and cans of Sprite. Like every 30 seconds.
No. You saw the puff of smoke coming up. That was probably
me. And so I remember watching it and not understanding why Casey Affleck was the way he was. Like, he was so detached from reality.
Yeah.
Like, he just didn't care about anything.
Yeah.
He had a terrible job as a super at an apartment.
Cleaning shit out of
literally
toilets
cleaning shit out of toilets, sitting at the bar, just putting them away, getting in fights. His brother dies. Minor spoilers for Manchester by the Sea.
First 5 minutes.
Yeah, and his brother dies. He's got to go back there, and we get all these different flashbacks. But then there's the scene where it's a flashback where he's married to Michelle Williams. They've got 3 daughters.
Yeah,
2 or 3? No, it's 3 daughters.
3.
Yeah, they got 3 daughters. And it's him and his buddies in his basement, and they're having a great time.
Just
and
a bunch of guys hanging out.
And they're laughing.
The exact same thing everyone does.
Yeah. And
literally everyone
and Michelle
does.
Williams is like, all right, you guys got to go. I got to go to bed. And, and I'm just going, what happened? And then, and I'm not going to say what happens.
Yeah.
But then the reveal of what happens, like, I remember just being gutted.
Yeah.
And then when he's in the police station and the cops are like, you're not in trouble, man. This was an accident. Like, we're not going to hold your feet to the fire. Like, you're not in trouble. And then when he tries to kill himself, like, oh my God.
I know it's a killer movie, but that's one of those I go back like. So when we get into 2000s, we'll go through Lady in the Water.
Yeah.
Which
I'll have to watch.
You'll have to watch finally.
It is the only hole in my M. Night Shyamalan filmography.
Looking forward to that rewatch.
I think I'm going to like the movie a lot more because of how disillusioned I am with the current state of cinema.
I hope so. Because there's a scene in that movie that, I mean, to this day, like if I even think about it, I get teary-eyed. But that is what I seek out in movies, is something to make me feel really anything. Because I can watch Rambo.
Yeah.
And go, that's a fucking great movie. Like, yes, but to make me move my emotions from one thing to another, that's something special.
Speaking of emotions in movies and modern day films, all right? So Guardians of the Galaxy 3 came out on streaming. Okay?
I watched it.
So I hit play. All right?
I'm curious to see what you did.
And within the first 2 minutes, when you see all these little animals, and I'm like, I'm out. Didn't make it past that. You see like some hands coming in to grab one. I'm like, I'm done. I'm not doing this. I'm done. Fuck that. I am done.
That was where Rocket came from.
Yeah, I know. I didn't want to see it. Like, I have a soft spot for animals in peril. I'm like, nope, I'm done.
Oh, then yeah, you would not have enjoyed this film.
Like, I am done.
Ooh.
And that's James Gunn.
Yeah.
So that was his last Marvel movie. Now he's off doing the DC thing. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Again.
Okay.
This is kind of an off the cuff episode.
Yep.
Did you see The Flash?
I did.
Okay. Can we talk about it? Because I haven't seen it, and I'm surprised at how bad it bombed in the theater.
So it was terrible.
Yeah. All right. Time out. The reason I say this, is because so many people fall prey to what I call predatory movie marketing. All right.
That's what Ezra Miller.
You have Tom Cruise coming out saying that he saw The Flash like a month ago, going, "This is one of the great movies of all time." You have James Gunn, who's now the head of DC, coming out saying The Flash is up there with The Dark Knight as one of the great comic book films of all time.
No.
And I'm like, I'm going to watch this movie, you know? And then all of a sudden, like, it comes out and it does worse than Ant-Man Quantumania. Like, it is bad.
Yeah.
So I ask you, how bad is it?
It's bad.
Yeah.
So here's the only reason I went and saw this in the theaters was for Michael Keaton. That was it. I wanted to see Michael Keaton back in the Cape.
Yeah.
And Michael Keaton, he's probably the only bright spot in this entire movie. The fact they had to drag him into this, that's what I felt bad about. I'm like, oh man, y'all drug fucking Michael Keaton into this.
Oh, no. He did one of those Spider-Man movies.
No. I mean, as Batman.
Oh, okay.
Like, y'all have gone so far jumping the shark that, like, if I was DC, I would have taken that Zack Snyder cut and taken that and gone in a completely different direction and said, I'm sorry for what we did before Suicide Squad, all those other movies. Let's go from there. This was a continuation of the same crap that DC has pushed out over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And this is coming off of Ezra Miller, like, I mean,
being a pretty deplorable. How is he?
I don't even know where he's at anymore, but
he doesn't know where he is at.
He's wanted for like child endangerment and
grooming, all kinds of craziness.
So I do my best to keep the personal away from the professional, but
and we've talked about that because there are some movies on this list that we have to definitively separate the art from the artist. We have to, like Usual Suspects. Yeah. Goodness, both the director and the star.
So no, DC they've lost their way, and I hope that James Gunn can bring them back, but only time will tell because.
I mean, they're starting filming that new Superman movie.
Jeez.
Hey, I have an idea. How about
Black Adam? I mean,
come on. I can't. Yeah. Okay. Did you see Dial of Destiny?
I can't.
No, I have no interest.
I will watch it when I will buy it, but
you'll buy it.
I'll buy. I will support it. I will support it through buying it, only because I eventually need to see it. It should not have been made.
No, none of it. I can give you a list of the
Crystal Kingdom should not have been made.
I can give you a list of about 500 movies that have come out in the past 10 years that should not have been made.
Yeah, and a lot of those I'm like, all right, I know, like Fast and the Furious. Like I know, like we've talked about this before. I know it's going to be terrible. I went and saw Fast and the Furious X. It was terrible.
If you set your expectations, you're not going to be disappointed.
Right.
I started the first 10, 15 minutes of that movie. I got past my 7 minutes.
No, but my son is named after Henry Jones Jr. His name is Henry.
Yeah, no, and that's
his middle name is Beckett after Sam Beckett from Quantum Leap.
You can name. Listen, Henry Jones Jr. Like you can do that. That's fine.
But So you don't need to make movies. You don't need to make sequels to make money. Make original films and be okay netting $100 million.
Well, that's what Universal was doing at the beginning of the year.
Yeah,
they were putting out what could probably be considered B movies, like Knock at the Cabin, Megan, Cocaine Bear. These movies did not cost a lot to make, and they made money. They all made money.
That's the thing is at this stage in the game, we're looking at these 90s movies. We're like, oh, they was made on a $20 million budget. And it made $70 million. Back then,
that was great.
That was great. At this point, with marketing, with every ancillary thing involved, your budget has to be $100 million, and you got to make $1 billion in order for the studio to go, well, okay, it was a success.
So on my list here, I've got a list of movies that I wish they still made. And number one on my list was Tremors. I know they've made 9 sequels.
They've got to have like 15 out by now.
But I still find that to be one of the funnest and just I have a great time with that. Val and Earl. I have a great time with that movie. So another one that we need more of, Sneakers.
Yes.
The classic all-star cast, the caper, the espionage, that movie's so much fun.
Yep.
Okay. Movies that were ahead of its time. Armageddon.
Okay.
It was the prototypical summer blockbuster back before we had the prototypical summer blockbuster.
Oh, that was like a space opera.
That movie gets released today as is, it's a hit.
It holds up. Yep.
It's a hit. All right. I have here directors that have fallen off from our list. Okay. I have written here, I have Independence Day, Roland Emmerich.
Moonfall. Maybe.
Moonfall. Okay. I have here, hang on one second here, Robert Zemeckis.
Oh.
Forrest Gump. Okay. He's had a storied career, but lately he's hit a couple of rough patches.
I was say, yeah, that's very true.
He did Witches. He did the Pinocchio thing. He did Welcome to Marwin or Return to Marwin or whatever it's called. None of those hit like they should have.
Excellent point. Yeah.
All right. We got another one here. Mel Gibson.
Ooh. Well, you can blame that on the voicemails.
Yeah.
I mean,
you make me want to smoke.
although I will tell you this, and I don't know why I did this the other day, because it just screwed me up for like 3 days. I rewatched The Passion of the Christ. I don't know why.
That's a one and done for me, buddy. I saw it.
I'm in my kitchen cooking dinner. I'm like, oh, let's put on The Passion of the Christ. And that was...
2 more on the list of directors that have quote unquote fallen off. Okay. We have the Farrelly brothers.
Yeah.
Did you see Champions?
No, I did not.
I started watching it. It seemed perfectly fine, but what's the last like hard R movie they tried to do? Was it Heartbreak Kid with Ben Stiller?
Ben Stiller, yeah.
What was the one he did? They did Me, Myself, and Irene. I think that came out in 2000.
Yeah, that was
99.
Earlier. Yeah.
That one was mean.
I actually love that one only because of Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
When they put that dildo on the toilet.
Yeah. Why am I peeing like I had sex? Am I pissing like I had sex last night?
He's like, what was this? He's like, that was for you.
Paul Verhoeven. And when I say fall off, I want these people to come back. I know he's still making movies, but I mean, we're talking RoboCop, Total Recall, Basic Instinct. He had a run there.
Well, it's tough to. Switching genres. It's got to be difficult to go from doing something like RoboCop to. What do you do now?
Movie I wish I added to the list: Starship Troopers.
Shut up. No.
I think that movie is brilliant.
No.
It is look. I probably saw that movie 15 times before I realized, the humans are the bad guys in this story.
Wait, can you hear this?
The humans are the bad guys in this story.
I hate that movie.
I was like,
movie I would like to add would be Primal Fear.
Primal Fear, Richard Gere.
Yeah.
Who? Somebody turned down that role. I think you told me that Leo auditioned. Somebody auditioned for the Edward Norton role.
I think it was Leo. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. Movie that I was surprised to find out a lot of people don't like, and that was Scent of a Woman. We talked about that in episode 9.
Yeah.
Fucking love that movie. That was good. All right. Movie that I was also surprised to see a movie I was surprised that has been lost to the sands of time, and that's Forrest Gump. And I tested this theory out at work with some of the early 20-somethings that I work with. I'm like, you seen Forrest Gump? No. That movie in the 90s you would have thought would be as enduring as It's a Wonderful Life.
No, it was probably like a week ago, someone sent me a text that said like, hey, how's it going? And I sent back a gif of Forrest Gump on the boat, like waving.
Yeah.
That stupid grin he's got. And the response back was, who's that?
Who's that?
Like, yeah.
Movie that if we're looking at directors that have fallen off, James Mangold with Dial of Destiny, Copland, still his magnum opus in my opinion.
Okay.
Followed closely by Logan. I know. I liked a comic book film in 2017.
I had a difficult time with that movie because it was good, but it ended the X-Men for me.
No.
And I just went like, okay, there's no coming back from this.
I was never an X-Men guy.
Yeah. No.
In fact, I hadn't seen
I grew up with the cartoon, which is why I never read the comic books, but I grew up with the cartoon and I loved it.
I didn't even see any of the Wolverine movies before Logan.
Your face.
I went into Logan like I could give a fuck.
Really?
All I wanted to know, all I saw was James Mangold was directing it, and it was rated R. Yeah. And I was like, you know what? I'm in.
I would say it was probably one of Patrick Stewart's best. It was his best X-Men movie.
Let's see here. Going through the list here, a movie that you'll never watch again, Sling Blade.
Yeah, never again.
One that I think is a masterpiece, and I've watched it multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you right now.
Nope.
A movie that I'm probably going to catch the most flack for adding to the list, Showgirls.
No, that's a good movie.
It's a good movie.
It is.
People miss the point of that film.
Shut your face.
They definitely miss the point. A movie that we did a whole episode on, True Romance, which has been blowing up. People are loving that episode.
Love that movie.
Let's see. If I was to go through the most impactful film personally for me on this list, the movie that I related to the most, and that would have been Swingers.
Really?
Just because I was in that age range.
Okay.
I identified with the characters, and they represented the last generation before the technological boom kicked in. Like, they had house phones with answering machines. When they went out with their friends, no one was buried in their phone. And it's that never-ending tale of, love and romance and trying to find it and trying to find your way when you're in your early 20s. And I just really always identified with that film.
No, I love that. I think for me, the one I identify with the most and the one I could rewatch over and over, like on repeat, would be The Sixth Sense.
The Sixth Sense?
Only because...
Do you see dead people? Is there something I don't know about you?
I mean, occasionally, I've been out drinking for a while.
Right.
But for me, that was one that everything in the 90s, everything before that was trending towards one direction. And I saw that and I just went, holy shit. There's a whole different direction we can go. And I'm excited to see where we can go from here.
Okay. Movie that represents the director's best film I have on the list here, The Rock, which is I still consider to be Michael Bay's best film.
Yep.
Okay. Another director that has fallen off, Jan de Bont.
Yes, after Speed.
Speed 2. And then he does The Haunting a few years later and doesn't really do much beyond that. The big question of what happened to this director, John Woo. We had Face Off on the list.
Yes.
He did that movie, Wind Talkers.
With Nicolas Cage.
With Nicolas Cage.
Actually, I remember watching that movie. I didn't hate it. It was a pretty accurate depiction of the Navajo wind talker.
That's a movie I was least excited to revisit, which I thought was going to be Natural Born Killers.
Was it one of mine? Was it one of
It
mine?
was one of yours.
Okay.
Blair Witch Project. least excited to revisit. And when I rewatched it, I was like, yeah. Because once the novelty of that movie wore off, you're like,
You're like, oh, here we are.
But that's also the movie that I feel the worst for the people that made, all the people involved in making the film, because they got fucked. They got fucked.
Yeah.
They really did. Another movie on the list here that is incredibly sentimental to both of us, and that is Clerks.
Yes.
Okay. Arguably still his best movie.
Could be.
Yeah. I think the case could be made.
Yeah. I mean, I love Chasing Amy. I love Dogma, but this movie is just, when you see an artist, like a musical artist, they pour everything into that first album. And I think that's what happened here.
Yeah, that's good. No, good point. Good point.
And that sophomore effort, sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. But Kevin Smith,
his sophomore effort, Mallrats, was that's arguably not a very good movie.
No.
That's probably the one I don't count Yoga Hosers or Tusk or any of those films, but in his earlier filmography, going all the way through Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, that's the one I'm like, I would rather watch Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and that movie annoys me to no end.
And I would say, look back on our podcast, because we did an entire episode.
That's correct.
On Kevin Smith's films.
Movie on here that I think represents the actor's greatest movie, and that is Dumb and Dumber. I still say that Jim Carrey is at his absolute best.
I would 100% agree
in
with
Dumb
that.
and Dumber. Okay. Question is, does this movie represent this director's best film? And that is Oliver Stone's JFK. I think a case could be made that might be his greatest movie.
It's his longest movie.
It certainly is. And I watched the director's cut. Clocks in at 3 hours and 30 minutes.
So I will say I took a contemporary history class in high school, and they made us watch Platoon, and that was so impactful for me because I had learned about the Vietnam War. I had not seen anything about Vietnam, and watching that movie in high school. I mean, you couldn't show that movie in high school nowadays.
No.
But in the 90s, watching that, I'm like, what did these people go through? So to me, that's his most impactful movie.
Okay. Movie that might be considered problematic by today's standards, Pretty Woman.
Easily.
Which we addressed on that episode where we covered it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bring that horror back.
movie on the list that for me personally is my favorite of the director's filmography, and that is Wes Anderson's Bottle Rocket. Still my favorite of all of his films. Did you see Asteroid City yet?
I have not yet.
No, I have zero interest.
Yeah, I saw some reviews. So
he lost me a long time ago. Like, I respect him, and I've seen some behind the scenes of like when they were making the Royal Tannenbaums.
Yeah.
So
I appreciate his outside opinion and outside view, and I've never watched one of his films and gone, this is fucking horrible. I always appreciate it for the art that it is.
Movie that I was glad we were able to add to the list, Die Hard with a Vengeance.
I would not have added that one, but it's a guilty pleasure. I love that movie.
Yeah. So is Cliffhanger, which was also on the list.
But that's impactful. That's a really good movie.
Movie on our list that I saw in the theater and didn't know the outcome.
Okay.
Apollo 13.
Oh, really?
At the time when I saw it, I did not know the outcome.
Okay.
So had me on the edge of my seat. Absolutely.
And at that point, there's no Google where you could be sitting in the theater and be like, did they make it?
Movie I think more people should see today that probably won't is Wayne's World.
Yeah, I would say that's an accurate one.
A movie that I thought should have made the list, Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery. The first one.
Yeah, baby.
I went back and rewatched that first one. I think it's secretly brilliant.
No, it is.
And I don't like the two sequels at all. No. Like, I'm not a fan at all.
No. But I remember laughing my ass off at that. I mean, Mike Myers is one of my heroes.
So, movie on here that probably everybody's seen multiple times, but we get excited to watch it anytime it's on. Goodfellas.
Oh, fuck yeah. You got a good 3 hours to spend?
Absolutely. All right. So what else do we have on the list here? Okay. Let's see. All right. And okay. All right. Well, that's it. Well, we're not going to go through them all. We want people to actually subscribe to
if
Patreon.
You found any of these like quick snippets exciting, find Patreon. It's on the App Store.
It's not that much.
No.
You can do $2 a month.
Yeah, $2 a month. And that will get you, what do we say?
Well, we're at 20 hours. And that doesn't count other stuff that's on there. There's 90 bonus episodes for over the past few years.
But outside that, it's just us uncensored talking about movies and agreeing and disagreeing on them.
So we are gearing up to do 101 movies from the 2000s. We've presented each other with the first 5 picks. Couldn't be more different from each other.
Should we list them?
You know what? We can tease. We can tease. Let's tease out what the first episode's going to be.
Okay.
All right.
So the first episode.
And this you're hearing it here. This is an exclusive. Typically, we want you to listen to it, but you're gonna have to listen to it to hear our thoughts. And for fun, listeners, try to figure out who added what to this list of 10 films.
Who did what?
Who did what?
All right. So, and again, these are in no. This is not like this is the 101st best or worst movie. So
clarify. This is
random order.
This is just 101 films from that decade that we recommend. It's not the definitive top 101 list.
Okay.
All right. Who added which movie?
Team America: World Police.
Interesting. Okay.
The Hangover. The Island. Stranger Than Fiction. Collateral. Anchorman: The Legend of Ron Burgundy.
Interesting.
Rambo.
Now, to clarify, that's the Rambo
2008.
from 2008.
Yes.
Okay.
Inside Man, The Contender, and The Aviator.
That is a very diverse list of movies right there.
Drama, action, comedy,
parody. Who added Team America World Police? That's what I want to know. Who added that film to the list? So, all right. Well, listen, Jason.
Yeah,
we're kicking butt here.
Man, let's go drinking.
Yeah, let's go have a couple and America, fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah.
So again, if you want to become a supporter of this podcast and help Jason and I keep the lights on over here at Dana Buckler Show headquarters, where cars are constantly driving by and we have to edit that out.
Yeah.
You can do so by going to patreon.com/howisthismovie. There is a link in this episode's show notes. Jason, my friend, thank you so much.
It's an amazing adventure. Thank you.
Yes. And we're just getting started. So my name is Dana Buckler. For Jason, you guys have a good one. Thank you so much. And we will talk soon.